I want to show you inside of another marketing automation workflow, and this time it's all about taking your new customer and engaging them so that they're satisfied with their purchase and making sure that they know they're going to be well taken care of. To help me show you this module, I'll turn to Nate Johnson, our marketing automation specialist.
Hey Nate, thanks so much for joining me for another module of the Marketing Automation for Small Business course.
Yeah, definitely, Bob.
I'm really looking forward to digging into this workflow that we have on the screen and getting an idea of how this all comes together as an automation workflow. Before we do that, though, I know that you're a real big proponent of getting things in the mindset set first.
Before you jump into any tool, Bob, you're definitely going to want to get into like Lucidchart, a whiteboard, Draw.io, any of these tools where you can actually visualize the logic, because that's where errors happen. You know, you don't want to assume something's going to happen and not have thought it out before, and then find that your automation isn't performing how it should.
And we'll be looking at Lucidchart specifically later in this module, but even if they're not using a tool like this, just like you said, a whiteboard, even paper and pencil,
Yep, a
legal pad.
Legal pad has worked well for me for years.
Excellent. So one of the first things that you're doing before you put a chart like this together is you're coming up with your goals. How important is it to set these goals before we start diagramming out the workflow?
It's critically important. You know, before you start automating anything, if you don't know what you're trying to do, you're going to multiply your results. So if it's the wrong result, you're going to multiply that every time somebody goes through the sequence. So you really want to zero in on what you want to accomplish with it. And you just want to make sure that you're using the minimal moving parts to kind of, you know, keep it simple. This stuff is hard on the brain, and just focus on accomplishing your objective. One last thing that I would add, you look at this and it obviously looks beautiful. What's really important here is understanding it in your head. As long as you can understand it and what you're trying to accomplish, what we're doing here is just building a map. Like, this is what we're going to take to the construction guys, and they're going to build it in the tool.
So for this particular automation workflow, we're going to be doing a customer follow-up. So what are some of the goals that you have in mind before you made this chart?
So first off, obviously, we want to reduce churn. We've probably put a lot of money into the marketing to get these clients, and we want to keep them happy and keep them with us. Second is to keep a pulse on the business. So this kind of goes along with reducing your churn, but just how are customers interacting with the business? You know, are they satisfied? Are they not satisfied? Where are we missing the boat? The next is to encourage repeat orders. So as everyone knows, it's much easier to sell more to an existing client than it is to find new clients all the time. So we want to try and facilitate that through best practices that we're automating in this workflow. And then finally, it's proactive marketing. So I've found it's a lot easier to be proactive in your marketing than it is to be reactive. And what I mean by that is looking at a graph, seeing that sales are down, leads are down, and then trying to scramble to, one, figure out a plan, and two, come up with the resources. So what we're going to do here is proactively build up a database of case studies of goodwill to get some word of mouth marketing, and then some specific tactics I'll share with you about generating social media traffic.
Whenever you're coming up with the workflow, you're also thinking about who's the ideal customer for this campaign, right? So for this particular one that we've created, what are some of the ideal businesses that are going to benefit from this particular workflow?
I would say any business that either sells the same product multiple times or has a portfolio of various products that they can sell to the same people. So I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, people that their service or product could be used multiple times. So it wouldn't be like a mortgage person or maybe a realtor. You know, the times in between different transactions are too long. This would be something where in a few months they might be ready for another purchase.
Cool, Nate. Well, what I'd love for you to do for me now is walk us through this particular campaign. In a few minutes, I'll have you show me how you built this campaign using Lucidchart, but just from a diagrams perspective, let's walk through the starting point and what are some of the thinking steps that you've done laid out in this particular workflow.
So to start off, Bob, remember this is a customer follow-up sequence. So it's going to be keyed with a purchase. So right here I have a node that's called order delivered. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical product that was shipped, but you know, could be a training, a coaching session, anything like that. So immediately after the product is delivered, there's an onboarding sequence. Now, this is pretty typical with most businesses. It could be one email, several, or an actual on-site consultation with one of the professionals.
That in itself is a whole campaign on its own, right?
Yeah,
Email
definitely.
messages that go out, phone calls that could be made, etc. But it's basically how you're communicating to your customer in a specific package.
Definitely. As a Lead Pages example, I mean, I know that we send out some great emails about how to use the tool, but then we also have the Launchpad webinar that people can hop on and see how to apply the tool in their business.
So to be clear, this workflow assumes that that is its own workflow, perhaps in a separate document. For this case, we're taking once the onboarding sequence is over or is in mid-process, the rest of this flow is what we're focusing on.
Yep. So what I have here is at the same time that the onboarding sequence might be going, we're going to wait until the product is actually in the customer's hands. So this is important because we want to send them now a customer satisfaction survey. We want to know what their experience was like with our company. I'd also like to add, another one of our goals that we had was keeping a pulse on the business. So I've personally done this over years, sending out a survey right after purchase. And it's very interesting data. You can kind of benchmark 1 year against the next year and see as a whole if you're improving or, if you're failing a little more as a business.
And one thing to note, this is actually an automation step, right? So this is going out after a week or two for every new customer. This isn't relying on someone on your marketing team sending out a survey every now and then when they get around to it. This is part of the machine that you have set up for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd like to add with this entire automation, the way that I look at it is you have to take the things that are effective in your business and just make sure that they're getting done every single time the same way. So that's exactly what this does. Every single customer, whether they had a good experience or a poor experience, is going to get that survey. Because while the sales rep might not want you to know, as a business owner, you really have to have your finger on the pulse of how customers are being treated. So with the customer survey, we're going to get some results back. And I have, 2 decisions here. The first is if they weren't very happy. As our goal of reducing churn, we're going to want to have a CRM task set from our automation platform that will assign somebody to follow up with the customer. Now, whether that's the sales manager, the sales rep, the owner of the business, that's kind of up to your specific setup. But you do want to get on these people, quiet the squeaky wheels before they, take to social media or something. Now, the second is if they did have a good positive result, either with your product or with your company. So here I'm setting another CRM task. In my history, it would be to my assistant. It might be to your marketing person, but to follow up with these people for a case study. Now, they just indicated that they had great experience with your product, and it's a good time to take in that data, take in the good feelings that they're having, and get them documented somewhere for a future case study. Now, that's kind of the base of the immediate follow-up that we're going to have. And from there, we're going to go down and just see if they have a Twitter account or not. Now, it needn't be just Twitter. It could be Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you use in your business and you're comfortable with. But we're going to see if they do have one of those accounts because we can make our messaging a little more effective by doing this.
And remember, this is setting up the idea of having word-of-mouth marketing as one of our goals, as well as additional social media traffic.
Definitely. I've had full-time social media people working on my behalf. This step that I'm about to share here got more traction than a whole year's worth of work with a full-time employee. It's amazing. So what we're going to do is if they have a Twitter account, we're going to tweet a nice thank you message. The goal being retweets, favorites, things like that. So basically, they're taking us and sharing us to their followers. So something I would do is, say I sold product to a hot dog stand in New York. I'd say, hey, if you're in the New York area looking for a hot dog, check out Nathan's Hot Dogs. And then link to their website in the tweet. Now, 9 times out of 10, people are going to favorite this, they're going to retweet it, and then they might even go the next step and tweet something nice about your business. Now, I don't know how many tweets it takes you normally to get that kind of response, but for me it was a lot, and this was a real game changer.
And I like that you also have, if they don't have a Twitter account, there's another step to take.
If they do, you're going to go right here. This indicates a wait. If they don't have the Twitter account, a Facebook or whatever, you're just going to bypass these. So after 15 days, we're going to check again if they have a Twitter account. Now, in real life, we already did check and we know. But for clarity on this diagram, I just put it back in there again. So if they do, we're going to follow up and retweet something that they posted on Twitter or like something that they put on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. But the goal here is just to be top of mind again. Hey, this company came and favorited something, and we're kind of on their radar again in a good way. Now, next, we're going to wait 2 more days, and after that, we're going to assign a task to our CRM for the sales rep to either email, call, do some kind of follow-up to see how the customer is doing. The goal of this follow-up is obviously a reorder or get some more information to put in your CRM. So after this touch point, we're going to have to make a decision. Did they reorder or not? So if they did, they're going to go all the way back up to the purchase at the beginning. And if not, we're just going to wait another 28 days. This could be really set to whatever your sales cycle is. So if any of these weights, don't apply to your business as much, maybe people reorder annually, every 6 months, every 3 months, just, kind of use this as a guide and adjust the timings.
The point is that whatever that delay is, you're waiting and then you're resetting them through this loop to continue checking in with them every few weeks with a new tweet, new favorite, new engagement on social media.
Yeah, definitely. And, it might seem like it's heavy or something, but with the speed of Twitter and social media, it might seem like it's a lot, but people kind of have the attention span of a hamster in a lot of ways. So, it's good to kind of get in front of them and then, shortly after try and make contact.
And just to reemphasize, if they do reorder, we're taking them all the way back up to the top and repeating the sequence with another layer.
Definitely. And there's nothing wrong to sending people a subsequent survey. If they order again, it could have been a different experience and you want to know about it. You don't want to just assume that they were happy once and they'll be happy forever.
Awesome, Nate. Well, I really appreciate you walking us through this particular type of workflow for a customer follow-up. Now let's do a little bonus training and show people how to get inside of Lucidchart as an example diagram maker. So we're not going to complete this full map, but let's at least do the top half and show some of the features of Lucidchart as a tool to create your marketing automation workflows.
All right, Bob. As you saw in the previous automation, we started with the order delivered. So I use this icon. It's called a Terminator icon. Basically, something is either like starting or stopping. That is the use that I have for it.
So one of the things to call to our audience attention right now is that these designs and shapes aren't just there for haphazard use. They actually have real principled uses in engineering and in software design and things like that. So as you mouse over the actual icon, it'll tell you the type of thing that it is in your diagram.
Now, some of them aren't probably one-to-one, with programming or engineering. For instance, I use the multiple documents one for like an email series, and then I'll use the process one for a one-off email or a task to a CRM or something.
Cool. And I think it's important to note this because as you are designing your automation workflow, you might not actually be the person who's executing it. You may be handing this off to someone, a virtual assistant or a team member who's actually going to implement it. And having that common lingo of what these diagrams can do, what are decision points, what are delay points, they all factor into what automation tools you're using and what feature within that automation tool that is going to be deployed.
While some of them could be debated, the ones that I would definitely get nailed down are like the delay. This would be the delay icon.
Handy that it's in the shape of a D.
Yes, yeah, I didn't even catch that, Bob. And the second would be a decision icon. So one thing to note with this is the first leg that you pull out of it will be a yes, and the second will be a no. And the third is just if you have another option. The final thing that I would note is just consistency. So if you're doing it one way with one diagram that you're putting together, try and use the same convention. So an email isn't, this guy on one and the next one it's this. Just keep it consistent. And, if you aren't doing the automation yourself, the person that is doing it will really, really appreciate having this.
So let's continue with that next step, adding in some of the pieces of our workflow.
So the first thing that we'll notice on the original was we had the onboarding sequence. So I use this. It looks, to me like a stack of papers or emails or something. So to connect these two, we're going to highlight a node and then drag an arrow over. Now, pro tip, before you start doing this, I always select this line type and use this one. So what that'll do is if you connect something that's not in a straight line, it'll make a nice 90-degree turns in there. So if I didn't have that, it would look like that.
And depending on the way that you look at diagrams, that can get really chaotic pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely. So the next thing that we're going to add is the weight before we send out the customer satisfaction survey. So I'm going to place that right here, and then I'll connect it again using grabbing a node and then dragging it over. So once you get familiar with kind of the general dragging stuff over, you can actually drag out your arrow, and then once you release your mouse, you'll be able to select the next process. So this will be our customer satisfaction survey. And then from here, we're going to make a decision based on the results of that survey. So I'm going to select the decision diamond. So by default, when you grab your first leg out of the decision diamond, it's always going to be yes. So I'm going to drag that out right here, and then I'll add my CRM task to follow up for a case study. Next, I'm going to add the second CRM task for customers that weren't happy with their product or service. And this will just be a general follow-up for anyone who handles customer success in your business. So from here, I'm going to add the decision to see if they have a Twitter account or not. Now you notice this isn't exactly like the other one, so I can take off this arrow and just reconnect it wherever I want. Another handy feature in Lucidchart is it will tell you when things are evenly spaced. While not required, it makes things look a lot better.
We don't really need to repeat the rest of it, I think. However, are there any other cool quick tricks you can tell us about grouping things together, moving things around? I know that you can copy and paste things. Any other of those quick tips that people could benefit from as they're getting started with this particular program?
One thing that I do a lot is I'll take the first email that I made, the first decision, the first CRM task, and I'll get them styled how I want. So say I want it to be a gray and yellow here or something, and then I'll just copy them and then save them off on the side. So instead of grabbing from here and getting a blank one, I can grab a pre-styled one, just copy, paste it, and drop it into my workflow.
Got it. So you sort of make a sandbox of the types of shapes that you're going to repeatedly use.
Yes. So a couple things worth noting is the canvas here will auto resize based on how big your automation is. So say I had this up here, it's going to auto resize that canvas to accommodate what I have going on. Now you'll see there's a dotted line here. That means that it's going to be a separate page. So if I went to print this, this would be on page 2, this would be on page 1. Also in the page menu here, you'll want to make sure that none of your icons are selected. You can go into the page settings and set it as landscape or portrait, and then change your page size as well. In here you'll find your grids, and you can set either large ones, small ones, or a custom size as well.
One of the cool things I love about the flowcharts you make is you've integrated some images into the designs. Show us where those are and how to put them in place.
This is really handy. You can add your own images at any time. And once you have them in there, they will be part of your library, so you won't have to re-upload them again. So great things to put in there are logos, or maybe a key member of your team.
And then one final thing I'd love for you to show is on the original document we have created, you had a text box as well. How do we put a text box onto a workflow?
So to add text, all you have to do is drag this little text icon out onto the canvas, and then I'll just type a little random text in here. So once I have my text here, I can obviously change the size, change it to a different font, and then additionally, we're going to have some alignment options here. So whether I want it to top center align, top left align, bottom, and then put it wherever I need it to be. Additionally, you can add body text, have bullets, and then kind of your standard formatting.
And with a little bit of time, you'll wind up with a really sharp looking diagram like this.
Thanks, Bob.
Well, thanks so much, Nate, for giving us a walkthrough of a particular customer follow-up campaign, as well as an inside look at Lucidchart.
No problem. Thanks for your time.